Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today. I am Crystal Hinkle, and I am part of the team here at Syncro, and we also have Nathan with us that is joining us from Webroot. So thank you so much for joining us. We appreciate you taking the time out of your busy day, of course. And so today what we're going to do is we're obviously going to talk about this phenomenal integration, how you can really streamline your process, offer your customers phenomenal antivirus through Webroot using Syncro to deploy it and that sort of thing. So we're going to just kind of walk you through, we're going to start, Nathan's going to kind of walk through what the ins and outs of Webroot and why Webroot. And then I will kind of take it from there. I'm going to show you the integration and how it looks on the Syncro side. We are going to, if you see me looking on the other screen, I'm going to pop out the Q&A section. It's definitely a really great place if you have questions to use the Q&A box. It makes it a little bit easier for Nathan and I to kind of, I guess, organize those questions as they come in. So if you don't mind using the Q&A, that would be awesome. We are recording this, so this will be, I believe we'll post this and maybe send out an email too, but it is being recorded. So if for any reason you have to hop out early, don't worry, it is recorded. So from here, I'm going to go ahead and introduce Nathan and let him take over. I'm going to kind of control the screen with slides, so you might hear him saying next, but that's just because I'm going to be controlling the screen here. So thanks for joining us, Nathan.
Hey, can you hear me okay?
Yep, we can hear you great.
All right, good. So I am the product manager of the integration side at Webroot. We've been working on this integration with Syncro for a little bit now. Really excited to get it out. So yeah, so do you want? Let's hop right into the slides there. So Webroot is we're a next-gen automated detection and response solution. So what that means is we automatically block and remediate threats without really affecting that machine. We've been doing it for a little more than 10 years now. We've been doing machine learning for 10 years. That's why we've got so many MSPs as our partners. We really kind of built our product and our global site manager and a lot of our integrations to meet what those MSPs are looking for. So that's why you can see there we've got 16,000 MSP partners. We protect over 300,000 businesses, and there's a lot of other really good information on that slide. So if you want to hop to the next one, just kind of a little bit about how our solution works. So on the kind of the right-hand side, you have all of the inputs into our threat intelligence platform. So that's all of our endpoint products, all of our OEM partners, our consumer solution, things like that. They all get all of the MD5 hashes and malicious data that they see gets uploaded to our threat intelligence platform. Then it gets then it gets categorized and analyzed, and then we push back out information that is going to kind of solve that problem for the users. So anytime we see a infection that we catch in the machine learning model, then automatically all of our endpoints are automatically protected by that. Can you hop to the next one? So this is a little bit about the difference between artificial and machine learning. So artificial intelligence is automatically doing something in the place of a human. Machine learning is artificial intelligence that is proving its own ability. And then deep learning is a branch of machine learning, and it's looking at a specific set of algorithms. So what Webroot does is we're doing a lot of the machine learning, and we're also doing a lot of the deep learning. And so what we do is we take that information, and based on the categorizations that we're using, we're linking a threat. We can link that threat to a URL from where it was delivered. So then we take that URL and we're categorizing the IP address that the URL is being hosted on. And so there's a lot of information in there that's, we're not just blocking a individual threat. We have a very vast set of data points that we're looking at for that individual threat. And we're tying that all back to an IP address. So if you're on a computer that has our Web Threat Shield or our DNS product installed on it, that's how we're able to categorize those different DNS solutions, or DNS categories, excuse me. Can you go to the next slide? So this is our 3 product sets there. So we have the endpoint protection. It is a very, very light, fast product that you put on an endpoint, and that's going to protect the computer against anti-ransomware, viruses, spyware, things like that. It's an endpoint protection product. The next one is our DNS protection. You can set that at the network or agent layer, and that's going to do DNS filtering. So we can block against DNS attacks, things like botnets. We can block against malicious URLs, so block your users from getting to malicious sites. Also, if you want to block them from getting, an organization blocking your users from getting to adult sites or time-wasting sites, you can also set those filters there. We also have a security awareness training product, so training your users how to not get phished, right? So seeing a phishing attack before you actually click on the link, understanding what to look for in that phishing attack, and also just understanding cybersecurity. And then we also have those next layers, which is going to be the compliance training. So things like HIPAA, PCI compliance, GDPR, things like that. We have training videos on all of those different things. Last one there is our threat intelligence platform, and we actually OEM that solution to a number of, very big providers out there that a lot of the firewalls that you guys probably are pushing out to your customers, you've probably seen the Webroot threat intelligence on that device. And then can you hop to that last slide? This is just the summary, right? So we're an industry leader in threat intelligence. So we have pretty close right now to about 14 petabytes of information in the Amazon cloud between URL and threat data. We provide a security platform to the MSPs. That platform is the endpoint protection, the DNS protection, and the security awareness training product. We have all 3 of those products integrated into one console, and then that console now is integrated into the Syncro platform. So you can deploy with Syncro, and we're going to talk about a number of other things in a little bit. It's and that integration makes it a lot easier to deploy. And then also, with the low cost, it allows you to charge for a security service to your customers. And with that, I will throw it back over to you, Crystal.
Awesome. Well, that was amazing. I appreciate learning more about all of the offerings as well. So thank you very much. That was great. So what I'm going to do, and again, if you have questions for Nathan specifically, if it's Webroot specific, if it's Syncro specific, doesn't matter. You can throw that in the Q&A, and we'll look to address those too. And so, I do recognize a fair amount of names that have joined us today. So again, thank you so much. For those of you that maybe aren't active Syncro users or haven't necessarily seen the platform, we are a fully embedded RMM and PSA solution. And as Nathan mentioned, we have now integrated with Webroot. And so what that means for you as an MSP is you can now, with like a couple clicks of a button, you deploy the agent and you can deploy Webroot simultaneously. So I'm going to kind of talk through a little bit of the details about that. And again, if you have any other questions, if you want to see some things about Syncro outside of that, happy to show you during this time as well. But let's focus on Webroot. So one thing I'll just show you, you can head right to this More section and you can go to our App Center and you'll see Webroot in here in our App Center. If you select this, I have this set up on my account. So this is going to look different for me. I'm already set and ready to go. But if this is your first time to this app card, what you'll see, it's more like this. So you'll see the ability to it'll give you this screen. What's amazing is that if you're already using Webroot, we can actually migrate your Webroot account into Syncro so that you do have the control and the ability to deploy. So, for example, if you're using Webroot outside of Syncro right now, that's totally fine. You just don't have the ability to deploy it through Syncro like Nathan mentioned. So we can really help you streamline your process if you migrate that account. In addition to that, from the app card, you also have the option to just create a new account straight from the App Center. So then the integration is provisioned through Syncro, and then again, you'll get that streamlined functionality that the integration has to offer, but our Help Center article will walk you through either process. So we try to make that as easy as possible for you, and we have a great Help Center article to be able to do that. Once you have that integration set up, it's as easy as if you head to, again, if you're familiar with Syncro, this might be a little bit of a repeat, but if not, if you have any questions here based upon policies, please let us know. Policies are what you set up when you go to deploy an endpoint so that it's monitoring what you want to monitor, it's deploying what you want to deploy, that kind of thing. So I'm just going to go into one of the policies that we have here on my account. And again, I'm just going to, as we're here, I might as well just mention, so this is kind of where you set up all of that detailed functionality that you want Syncro to, I guess, the actions you want Syncro to take on that endpoint. So for one, you've got your organically built-in triggers here. So you can see you can monitor all of these things with just simple clicks of the button. You've also got process and services monitor. So if you are familiar with Syncro, you probably just got this huge release announcement yesterday that we have released process and services monitoring. So cool to highlight that here as well. We've got event log policy alerts available in the master policy. You can monitor resource usage, status notifications, Windows updates, and third-party applications. But this is where you just enable Webroot from here. So again, it's literally like a click of a button, enable it. It gives you, you can sync to your Webroot policies, because how this is going to work is once you've enabled Webroot on this policy and you push this endpoint, this agent onto an endpoint, it's going to automatically install Webroot. So you don't have to do anything other than that. And then that endpoint is going to show up in your Webroot portal where you can apply all of those settings. And like Nathan mentioned, and he's definitely the pro in that regards, but there's a lot of different settings and a lot of protection you can offer your customers. And so that part of it is going to be managed through your Webroot portal. And then again, so this, just by enabling this on a policy, we're going to deploy it for you. So that's kind of the nitty gritty of it on the Syncro side. We've tried to make this as streamlined and as efficient as possible. And I think, let me see, I've got, so a couple of questions, and I'm going to answer these as we're right here if they kind of pertain to where I'm at. One of the questions is pricing based on number of endpoints. So no, it is oh, yeah, you can see it. So it's $1 an endpoint, and it's no matter how many endpoints you have. And the $1 an endpoint includes that first tier that Nathan mentioned. The, I guess I could probably go back and show you. That might be helpful. So this is this endpoint protection. This is all included in that $1 an endpoint. So hopefully that answers your question. Okay, so let me head back over here. Let me see if there's any, and Nathan, if there's any questions here that you want to kind of hop in and answer.
Yeah, I'm just writing a response to a couple of them as I see. So.
Oh, okay, great. Okay, thank you. And then it says, will there be a way to exclude deployment on specific systems when Webroot is applied to the policy? No, what you would probably have to do is just assign a policy without Webroot enabled for those machines that you don't want it to deploy. So it's not really setting an exclusion through the policy. It would just be assigning a different policy to those endpoints. All right. And then also, how about the uninstallation of installed AV? So if it's something like so let's clear up. I'll just kind of try to be detailed on that one. If you're using another antivirus right now that's not managed through Syncro, you would most likely have to write a script to uninstall that and make sure it's out of the way before you install something else. If you are using a managed product through Syncro, whether it's MCSoft or Bitdefender, you can simply you can change and update that policy to not have one of those antiviruses enabled, and then Syncro will automatically uninstall those. So it just, I guess my answer depends on if Syncro's managing that other antivirus or if it's a different third-party tool. So if it's a different one, you would have to script that. Let's see here. So the other thing I'll mention too, like when you are looking at just on a machine level, one thing to note here, and again, if you're new to Syncro, this might kind of help you see a little bit more about, you know, how you're managing your endpoints and that kind of thing. But I'm going to look at my Syncro devices here really quickly, and I just want to show you too, you can easily see, like on a machine, if I go to this machine specifically, you can easily see if you go to the antivirus section here, what antivirus is installed. So this is kind of where you would be able to see if there was another, like a third-party tool. Like for example, I can see right here that I don't have one of our antiviruses installed on this machine, but I can still see what's installed. So this will update if you have, of course, Webroot installed on that machine. All right, let's see here. I'm going to go through a couple of these questions. All right, okay, so I see, I can't tell which ones. Oh, okay. So if Webroot policy had DNS enabled, it would install the DNS protect portion using, oh, I think maybe you already answered that one. Okay, cool.
Yeah,
It looks like, cool. It looks like Nathan's answering quite a few just through the text. So I'll kind of continue just to monitor what we've got going on. Also, I think, let's see here. Oh, cool. Okay, so I'm just making sure because I see some in the chat box and some in Q&A. So hopefully we'll get through all of these questions. And if Nathan, if you want me to address any of them, just let me know.
I'm missing the ones in the chat box, so I haven't seen those yet, guys. So give me a second to respond to those. I'm just finishing up the questions in the QA part, and then I'll start responding to the ones in the chat.
Awesome. Thank you, Nathan. So what I think I will do right now, since we've got a little bit of time, I would really like to just show you a little bit more about Syncro. So again, the whole idea for an MSP is to really streamline your process. And so for those of you that aren't necessarily familiar with Syncro, I would love to just kind of highlight some of those areas. So as Nathan's answering some questions, and if there's any of the questions that you'd like to answer out loud too that you might think would be helpful for the group, that would be great as well. But for now, I'm just going to go into a customer.
Sure, can I take you up on that?
Yeah, absolutely. Please do.
All right. So first off, I think it's Brian. He asked, how do you uninstall? How does the uninstallation of the AV work? Crystal, you started on that. The other piece of that is just if you're trying to uninstall Webroot, the best way to do that is going to be from the Webroot Management Council. So currently in the integration right now, there isn't a way to uninstall Webroot. That's on the roadmap to get added. So we're working with Syncro to add a couple of those other features.
And I see one from Randy here. He's asking, is the DNS filter available in the Syncro integration? And to answer your question, it is available in the Syncro integration. It's not included in the dollar and endpoint. It is an additional dollar. So you can absolutely enable it and use that through Syncro. It's not included in that initial dollar and endpoint.
And then Jeremy, I answered one question, and then I think it caused another question. So, Jeremy, you can, in the Webroot Council, you can define a policy that has the DNS agent enabled, and a policy that has the DNS agent not enabled. And then in the Syncro integration, you would just select the Webroot policy that would be for DNS, and the Webroot policy that would be for no DNS, if that makes sense. It's just you'd have to select the correct policy you want Webroot to use.
Right, and just to show you, like in-app, what Nathan is referring to is just where when you set up and enable, you've got your Webroot policy here, so you can sync those Webroot policies and then select which one you want enabled for these machines. Was there another one at all,
So
Nathan, that you wanted to?
Robert, does the content filtering require a specific DNS server? So if you're using the agent, the Webroot endpoint agent and the Webroot DNS agent, what that does is it installs on the endpoint and then it changes the DNS server on the endpoint and it redirects all that DNS traffic to Webroot. If you want to set it up at the network layer, you have to go into the, again, the Webroot Management Console. You put your aggregate IP address into the console, and then you would forward all of your traffic on your firewall or gateway device to a IP address that we specify for you.
Awesome. We've got a question, does the Webroot integration include anything beyond deployment at this time? Currently, the primary functionality is deployment. There is quite a few things you can do with Syncro though, just based upon the RMM being embedded with your PSA. So I'm just going to hop in and kind of show you what I mean by that, maybe an example. So since we have that fully integrated platform and you can, for example, send invoices out via Syncro. One really neat thing, I'm just going to show you really quickly. If we head over to invoices and you look at these invoice modules and reoccurring invoices, you can easily set up, like if you charge your customers per endpoint or maybe possibly something additional, if they have like DNS filtering enabled, for example, we have dynamic counters. So if it was like an asset and RMM counter, you can either like choose like what asset type, but you can do a saved asset search within the RMM. So you could say like, for example, like you could make a saved asset search for all machines that have Webroot enabled, because then that way, like if you wanted to charge per endpoint a little bit of additional, or if you wanted to create a custom field that person has DNS filtering, we can pick that up in a dynamic count and you can bill your customers very efficiently, whether it's monthly or annually, whatever that is, since we have that fully integrated billing platform right here within Syncro, it makes billing really, really easy. So you can deploy it, and then when I talk about a saved asset search, you can come over here, you can create a saved asset search here, and you can filter by custom fields. There is a ton of ways to create saved asset searches here. So there's some really neat things that you can do just based upon, like, you could say, I want to do a saved asset search because everyone that has Webroot has this specific policy. So there's some really neat things that you can do there. All right. I haven't been paying attention to the Q&A, Nathan, so if you've got something.
Yeah, there's a lot in here.
Yeah.
So Robert, again, when you're running the DNS at the network layer, yes, you can, just like if you're using any protection product on the firewall level, if I change my DNS server to 8.8.8.8, I can bypass it. But in your firewall, if you're blocking those DNS requests, right? If you're blocking that DNS request and only allowing your firewall to answer those requests, that's a way to further protect your network. So that's a way that you can get around it at the network layer. But when you're using the agent, if the user changes their DNS server, that automatically reverts back to the Webroot. So we just changed it to 127.0.0.1, and so it automatically reverts that change back every 30 seconds. So that's that one.
Let's see here. Is the Webroot console integrated into Syncro? Not at this point. It would be a separate console, a separate portal.
So with that question, right, there's certain things that you do on the Webroot side, but as far as your day-to-day tasks, verifying that the agent is installed and working, deploying the agent, all that stuff's going to be done through Syncro. If you need to, create custom policies and things like that, that's where you would go to the Webroot portal for. But most of your work can be done through the Syncro integration, and as that integration continues to grow, it's just going to become more and more integrated. One of the other questions here was, from Kevin on the DNS agent switching the DNS servers on the client workstation. How does that handle the workstation need for local DNS to point to Active Directory domain controllers? So again, in the Webroot console, there's a spot where you can add in all of your local resources, right? So if you have some printers.yourcompany.com or whatever resources you have locally, you would just add those to the console, and then that automatically downloads to the agent. So then anytime the agent is within that network that you've specified, the agent knows to point those resources to the local resource.
Awesome. And I'm curious, Nathan, do you know this? Does Webroot, this tier here, include surf protection? That was a question. And if not, we can definitely find out.
Yeah, I don't know what surf protection is. So the endpoint protection product comes with a web threat shield, and so there's a piece of the product that is installed within the browser that blocks phishing attacks live, and it blocks the users from getting to malicious websites within the browsers, right? So we protect Internet Explorer, Chrome, Safari, and Firefox right now.
Awesome. I think that answers the question. I think it sounds like it does. Another question I'm seeing, does the Syncro integration just use the existing Webroot dashboard we use standalone now? Do you know for sure? I feel like I think it does, but I don't know for sure. Do you know, Nathan, when they migrate their existing?
Yes. So when you migrate from, so say you're using someone else and you're migrating to Syncro, your global site manager or your Webroot management console, that's going to stay the same. Your integration is just going to change. So there might be some things that you have to reintegrate there, but Syncro's pretty much simplified a lot of that for you with the transition process that they have set up.
Awesome, thank you. One question we have, is there a way API to create invoices with the Dutch language, with the invoice system? So what I'll show you, and you can test this out, Eric. So the actual app, like the app that you would use day to day, doesn't necessarily translate. However, if you go to your admin section, and you go to, I think it's general preferences, as long as you have the proper locale selected, the things that are customer facing should have the appropriate language. So whether that's the customer portal or the invoice itself. So I would definitely play around with that if you have not already. So it's not going to change what the in-app looks like for you, but your customer facing stuff should change, yes. That one. Let's see. I'm going through these questions here. Oh, Eric, no, I mean, can Syncro send invoices to my Dutch invoice system? I don't know what that system is, but we do have an open API. So definitely check that out. You can just go to our help center and you can simply just type API. We have a really cool open API. So if you just go to our REST API, you can get some information here and build some really neat extensions. So you can also forward invoices to any sort of custom email address as well. But if you have any other questions, feel free to reach out. All right.
Okay, so now just kind of addressing some of the questions that were in the chat. Looks like Randy asked if you have been using Webroot and Syncro but haven't set up the integration, you can set that integration up very easily. You just have to go through that process that Crystal went over earlier. So Jason asked, can you buy the DNS product for Webroot and not the AV product? It's currently not possible. The two products are pretty integrated together. We are in the process of setting it up to be separated, but that's not the case right now.
All right, and a couple other questions too that I was looking at. It says, are the policies set on a per machine basis, or can you set it for an entire client at once? Great question. So let me just show you real quick. So if you go to a customer and you go to deploy the endpoint, we have different ways that you can deploy. So for example, if you go grab new agent installer, we do have an MSI installer. So if you were deploying this over group policy, you could select whatever policy you wanted, deploy this across that entire customer base. Again, you can see that we have different ways that you can deploy that. We also have like a universal installer, which would use whatever default policy that you've created. But what's really awesome is you can go to like your assets and RMM screen. So like maybe you deploy Syncro en masse using the universal deployment scripts or one of our migration paths that we have with some of the other RMM solutions. But if you deploy like a base policy and you want to change that across an entire customer set, it's as easy as like you can say, okay, I want everything for Larry and all of his Syncro devices, meaning there's an agent installed on it. You can do like a search for those. You can select them all and you can come up here to manage and you can change a policy. So like you could deploy, again, a lot of times we have MSPs do this all the time where they deploy a very base policy. So usually like no antivirus installed, not really monitoring anything because maybe they're in that transition process. And so you can deploy it en masse and then you can always just change the policy across an entire customer set. Hopefully that answers your question. All right. And then, yes, so one of the questions it says, on my end, Webroot states beta. So the integration is fairly new. It's incredibly solid. And in fact, I think that might just be waiting on a UI update on our end. So it's solid. It's working great. And I think that that's just because it's a fairly new integration. All right, I think we're getting through a lot of these. If there's any, let me look here. Good question. So Charlie's asking, can Webroot items be imported into Syncro reports, such as how many viruses blocked, how many scans, or whatever else might be useful? Charlie, I love that. Right now, that's a feature request. So as Nathan has mentioned, you know, there's a lot, I think, more that we could do with the integration and try to import more of that information. Currently, that's not available within Syncro reports. I'm not exactly sure because I'm not as familiar with Webroot and what they have to offer regarding reports. I just know you wouldn't be able to pull those organically through Syncro at this point.
So Webroot right now, if you sign up and you're using Syncro, like was mentioned, you can't really integrate it at this time. There's a lot of tools that Webroot has. We have a reporting tool that if you want to email me, I can help you get connected with. And also just, again, how Crystal touched on, Syncro is currently and is looking at further things to add to this and everything. And this is it's a newer integration, so there's going to come a lot of changes with it. Also, there's a lot of stuff that looks really good that's coming down.
Awesome. Randy wants to know if you're getting a better price with your current seller and choose to move to Syncro, will we get the same pricing? Do we have to switch to Syncro billing to use the integration? So to answer your question, Randy, yes, you would have to switch to, if you wanted it to be integrated with Syncro, it would be based upon the pricing that we offer. We wouldn't match outside integrations. So, I mean, if you do want that ability to deploy through group policy and that kind of thing, you would have to migrate that account and it would be Syncro's pricing. All right. Let's look. Okay, what does this say? If the Webroot deployment fails when enabled via the policy, does this get reported back and notify the user? Does it try on its own again later on? Um, so it's not going to notify the user. When you say user, it's not going to notify the end user. It's not going to let the end user know that like that deployment has failed. One thing that you will see though is that, like, for example, in a policy, I'm going to go back over to a policy. If you have in any, I'll just, whatever policy it is, if you have Webroot enabled and then you have this antivirus installed and you want an alert, this will alert you if it didn't install. And a lot of times, I mean, then, at that point, it's either, update the policy and have it, try to redeploy or possibly script it. And at that point, I think that would definitely be geared towards just shooting a quick email to help@syncromsp.com to see why it didn't install or why it failed. Usually it's because there's maybe like some other antivirus still there. Some antiviruses can tend to be sticky, so if you uninstall and then go to deploy Webroot or something, that could block that from fully installing. So there's a lot of different things that I know that our technical support team can really help with too.
Yeah, and also just on that, when the alerts happen, there's also that right across the way, that auto resolve piece. So if the alert gets flagged, like you said, doesn't try and install it again. It will try and install it again, but for instance, if your user has Webroot already installed from another person, it won't ever install on top of it. So you have to connect with support to get that problem resolved. So yeah.
All right. And I don't know, maybe Nathan, you'd be able to better answer this question. Jesse's saying, I've had issues in the past with changing product keys in Webroot. The result was orphan devices. I had to touch manually. Is the migration fairly bulletproof in your testing and observation? So I haven't heard of issues like this, but
so a couple things. Number one, the changing of the product keys. If you're changing product keys from one MSP who owns the product and they're transferring it to you, yeah, that does happen where the transfer doesn't go through correctly. Maybe they say they ran the request and they didn't. That happens a lot. But as far as the Syncro integration, you shouldn't have to be changing any product keys. And also, you're only really changing the key from the agent commands in the Webroot management console. So with the Syncro integration, you're just going to move. Yeah, Jesse, I'm going to send you my email address if you want to talk about this offline. I'm not really, I guess, grasping the question. Sorry.
Yeah, and with that said, if there are any questions, because I know there's going to be a few questions that maybe either myself or Nathan was not able to answer, feel free. I'm just going to put into the chat box here really quick. If you have any questions, and I'm going to put my email address. Also, if it's anything like on the technical level, I'm just going to drop this in there too, help@syncromsp.com. And so if there was anything that we weren't able to really answer, or if there's anything left unclear, feel free to reach out so that we can make sure we get your questions answered as well. All right, so let's see here. Okay. All right. We are kind of getting through these questions. If anyone else has anything, let's see. Kenya wants to know about mobile protection. Do you mean, mobile protection as in a mobile app for Webroot, or do you mean like protection of mobile devices?
Webroot currently only has a consumer and like a mobile protection product. We had a business protection product, but frankly, it didn't sell, so we discontinued it.
Got it. Okay, hopefully that answers your question, Kenya. Okay. All right. Well, we're kind of running low on in the Q&A box, but feel free, again, if you have any questions, whether it's Webroot specific, integration specific, really, if there's anything. So the security awareness training, so Webroot offers that. It's not included, like Syncro wouldn't be included in that integration with Syncro. Yeah, so it would be additional. I'm not exactly sure that how you'd have to get that added part of it. Do you know, Nathan?
For the security awareness training?
Yeah.
I think that would just be a email to you guys, because I know we can take that offline.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, I think that's a good question, Kenya. We can try to figure that out. I know that what's included in our integration currently, and again, this might change, but currently it's the endpoint protection and then the DNS protection. And yeah, I think the same with the threat intelligence. It's kind of a separate aspect of that.
Well, yeah. So the threat intelligence piece, that's more of an OEM product. The endpoint protection product uses our threat intelligence platform. So like if you wanted to buy URL whitelisting or something like that and get a list of bad IP addresses to apply to a hardware device that you're purchasing, that's who's purchasing our threat intelligence. But our endpoint protection and DNS protection, they utilize that same threat intelligence that we're OEMing to partners.
Awesome. Okay. Eric wants to check out Syncro Live. So for those of you that don't know, Syncro Live is our proprietary built-in remote session tool. So I'm just going to head over to Assets and RMM. I'm going to look at my Syncro devices. So let's take a look. It sounds like Eric checked out Syncro quite a while ago. And so if you use this little quick view, it's pretty awesome because you can launch right into a Syncro Live session. You could run a script, you could change a policy, or you could create a new ticket straight from there. But Syncro Live, again, is our proprietary built-in remote session tool. I have like about 30 things running on my end. So if there's anything there, okay. So it's going to take you by default to the task manager with the ability to stop processes here. We have added a service manager. So we do continue to dev and put a ton of time into Syncro Live. It's going to take you to a service manager. These are searchable. You can start, stop, restart services from here. You have access to your system information. You have a file system, so you can upload, download, transfer files from here. You've got a remote desktop connection. And so let's see. It's not logged in yet. Let's see if I can remember the password on the fly. So you've got your remote desktop connection. And again, hopefully I can remember it. Okay, so yeah, you've got the session indicator on that's here by default. And then lastly, you've got your terminal. So whether it be command line or PowerShell, you can be running things in the background. All right, okay, let's see here. All right, so I answered that one. I'm just clearing up my queue here really quickly because I see a couple other questions. Why use custom as opposed to built-in? Oh, okay, good, really good question. Why use custom fields for credentials as opposed to built-in credentials section? Really, really great question. So to answer that, and for those of you that might not know what we're talking about here, let me head over to Larry. So we have we have custom fields where you can create encrypted fields, so you can store passwords and that kind of thing. We also, so this is an example of an encrypted field, so you can see like you actually have to enter your password vault password to be able to unlock that information. The main difference is that custom fields were created first. So then we launched credentials as well. And the main difference that this is what I kind of explain, they are both the same security levels. They're both encrypted. The main thing is with credentials, you can pass credentials to your customers, whereas custom fields are internal only. You can't change, you can't like say, I want this custom field available on the customer portal, whereas credentials you can. So that's the main difference. And it's basically just the order that we built. All right, let's see. How is Syncro doing on HIPAA compliance? Yep, still on the schedule and still working on it, hopefully by the end of the year. Let's see here, so I answered that one. How Mac friendly is Syncro? So we have a Mac agent in private beta right now. We just added it to the help center, I believe. So I think it's public. So let me just find it really quick. Mac agent. Okay, so this you can kind of search this and it gives you a nice overview. It'll give you the feature matrix and what's available. So it's in private beta at this point. If you do have an active trial or if you're a paying account, whatever, shoot me an email or shoot your account rep an email and we could add you to the Mac beta as well. And from a customer standpoint, essentially you're just going, when you go to grab an RMM agent installer, you just have the option, now you've got a Mac installer once that has been enabled on your account. Let's see, I answered that one. Can customers also enter passwords? So currently, no. Currently, you can create those credentials and then you can allow your customers to access those. So you can see from a customer portal standpoint, they show up here as a documentation page so they can see their credentials here. Does the Syncro Live work for Macs? Not currently. Syncro Live that's not a part of the feature matrix for the Mac agent at this point. Is there an Android app available? Yes. It's called Syncro Lite. So yeah, absolutely. Okay, cool. Let's see. Oh, will Webroot be added to the Mac beta? Good question. I don't know. Again, I mean, we've talked, it is a fairly new integration. So, I mean, I don't know if that's necessarily on the roadmap at this point, but definitely I can jot that down as a request for sure. Okay, and then is Syncro Live going to work on Android for remote access? So currently, it pops you out into a web browser. So I know eventually we absolutely would like it to work in app. I'm not sure, again, if that's actually scheduled right now on the roadmap, but I know that that's definitely on the feature request list already for sure. Let's see. I use Zoho for mobile remote control. Is Syncro working on this? Not that I'm aware of, not saying that we're not, but not that I'm aware of. Let's see. Okay, not seeing the encrypted custom field for custom assets. Am I missing that? Probably not, Kevin. So I probably wasn't super clear. So these encrypted fields, essentially, there's a couple steps to be able to create encrypted fields. So step one is to go to your App Center, and then you'll head to, I believe it's fairly close to the bottom, but it has like a little building on the top front of it. Yes, this is Password Vault. So you have to go here, you have to enable Password Vault. And then once you've done that and you've created your highly secure password, you can then head to the admin section and you can create an encrypted custom field. So you can do that either for a customer, an asset, a ticket. So for example, these customer custom fields, you could head here, because if you create a new field, once you've set up Password Vault, the field type will give you the option for encrypted. And if you haven't set up that Password Vault, that won't even be there as an option. So hopefully that answers your question. Let's see here. Will Webroot send a list of every feature available? I think that if you, I I think that if you reach
We have
out,
an info sheet
yeah,
that we can provide if people want to send that. Not to throw you under the bus, Crystal, but if they want to email you,
yeah,
we could get that over to them.
yeah, that's absolutely fine. Yeah, that would be great. That would be great. We can get you that information for sure. Oh, and you meant remote control for mobile devices. So I don't know that that's on the roadmap. I know we've talked about MDM, different MDM integrations, but not currently, no. All right. Okay. Was there anything I missed? I think I was kind of flying through those things. So for anyone that's here that has additional questions, whether it's Webroot specific, whether it's Syncro, feel free to reach out, whether it's help@syncromsp.com, or if you have an account rep, please feel free to reach out. We definitely want to make sure we get all of your questions answered. And then let's see here. The other thing too, if you don't already have a trial of Syncro, feel free. You can just head right over to our website. We have a full featured 30-day trial. You can deploy endpoints. You can do everything. You can test all that you want while you're on a trial. We provide free demos where we can do a screen share and give you a very specific walkthrough of the product. So don't hesitate to do that if you don't already have a trial. Let's see. Okay. And then I don't see Randy says I don't see the credential options on assets. It's customer based. And then I don't know if you want to take this one, Nathan. There's one for you.
Well, so I think since this is recorded, I think we should take that offline. I think you already emailed me, Brian. If you didn't, I'll respond with my email address right now. I can shoot you over the battle card that I have.
Yeah, awesome. That sounds good. Well, again, Nathan, thank you so much for joining me today. This was really fun. Great information for me and hopefully everybody that's attended today. And again, thank you all that have come to hang out. And if you have additional questions, don't hesitate to reach out. But otherwise, thank you so much and have a great rest of your day.
Thank you, everybody, for joining.
Thank you. Bye-bye.